Welcome back to the 2015 North American World Championship Qualifier. 256 duelists remain after one day of intense competition, and after 3 rounds of Swiss today, we'll be cutting to the top 64. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jerome McHale, here with Mike Kohanam. Happy to have you with us for day 2 of the World Championship Qualifier. And we are starting things off with a duelist who has had World Championship experience. Back in Las Vegas a couple years ago, David Keener, who will be facing off against Raymond Yu. We'll be seeing our first Nekroz deck in quite some time, having only last seen it yesterday in the hands of TJ Kinsley. And he'll be going up against Tellarknights. Interesting matchup. Haven't seen that yet.
Raymond Yu is using a Tellarknight deck. Both of these duelists are currently 7-2, so they're really counting on a win here to help them get into the top 64 cut. A loss will essentially eliminate one of these duelists from the tournament. With an ending record of 9-3, he'll need some incredible luck and incredible tiebreakers to make it into the top 64 cut. It looks like this duel is underway.
A lot of interesting choices in Keener's deck. It's kind of a blend between more traditional Nekroz decks and the versions that use cards like Forbidden Lance and Solemn Scolding to protect their Djinn Release or empowered monsters. He's kind of in between the two. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Raymond Yu, on the other hand, has a fairly standard Tellarknight deck. You got the 11 monsters, 20 traps. His methods of dealing with a Djinn Release are rituals. He's got Book of Moon, Raigeki, Dark Hole.
Yeah, there's nothing too wild in Yu's Tellarknight deck. Keener has 3 copies of Multiple Destruction in his side deck. I'm curious to see what he uses those against most effectively.
I don't think that'll necessarily come into play here. As we see, Yu sets 4 face-down cards.
Yes. So
yeah, the Tellarknights set so many cards you're never going to be able to activate Multiple
Certainly
Destruction.
would not be effective here.
Probably not going to see it.
What deck do you think he puts it in against?
Probably other Nekroz decks. After we saw how well it fared against Kinsley yesterday, I'm kind of convinced that that's what it's being used for here. Nekroz Brionac is discarded first thing for Keener. He takes Nekroz of Unicorn from his deck. You can see he's already got Kaleidoscope. Strong opening play. Kaleidoscope lets you send 1 monster from your extra deck to the graveyard, and then ritual summon monsters whose levels add up to, monsters plural, whose levels add up to the level of that 1 cent card. But Keener will be summoning no cards because Vanity's Emptiness has been chained to the Kaleidoscope. Nekroz Causeless is discarded, getting a second Kaleidoscope.
Does Keener have a way to take down that Vanity's Emptiness or destroy any of the used cards?
In his hand, he doesn't. One of the things with the Tellarknight matchup is that if you can get your 1 copy of Vanity's Emptiness and throw, say, an Unalkalai out there, you're pretty much golden because none of the monsters that Nekroz can normal summon most of the time can reach that. The best they can do is wall up with Shuret.
Right, so this is potentially game-breaking for you. It looks like Keener is just discarding, using the effects of his cards to try to thin his deck to draw a potential out to that Vanity's Emptiness.
So it's interesting. Keener has actually gone and foregone Mystical Space Typhoon after it came back in the main deck for pretty much every other Nekroz player we saw in Columbus and Kinsley as well. Keener is not main decking it.
Yeah, so he'll need something more creative than that. He is playing 1 copy of Solemn Scolding. Perhaps that can destroy a card that can take the Vanity's Emptiness down with it.
If it was on the field, it could. The problem with negation stuff is that it's generally not considered on the field anymore.
Well, you could activate, negate like the effect of the Neb or something, right?
Yeah, if you negated the effect of it, yeah, sure.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of answers here. He's got Forbidden Lance, which maybe he can use in combination with a Mangju or a Sangju to take down a monster. That brings down the Vanity's Emptiness with it. But right now, he's just searching. So
starts Brionac, gets Shuret. We also see that he banished his ritual spell and the first Brionac to get another ritual spell, the Nekroz Cycle. Unicorn is discarded to get back Brionac. Thinks about setting the Forbidden Lands.
has to either set something or discard it in his end phase. So he has decided to set the lance.
That might as well be the card you can actually use.
Yeah, and he's probably not too concerned about you destroying it, because if you were to destroy it with a card like Mystical Space Typhoon, there goes the Vanity's Emptiness.
Keener picks up Djinn Release for Rituals, and that's actually kind of good for him here.
Yeah, 2,000 defense.
In theory, Raymond Yu could pick up Thunder King Ryo, and that could get past Shurit, but it could not get past the 2,000 defense of the Djinn. Djinn is going to go ahead and attack here. Keener getting in the first damage of the duel, despite not really being able to execute any of his strategy. With the Forbidden Lance face down, the attack points of Djinn Releaser actually matter. Raymond Yu sets a monster face down. That's the Vega we saw him with.
So Djinn Releaser of Rituals is 1,200 attack points, so in this particular situation, you would need a monster with over 2,000 attack points to get through the Djinn and the Lance.
He hasn't got one.
Yeah, that would be incredibly hard to get onto the field without special summoning. Looks like it's actually impossible to get onto the field without special summoning.
Upstart Goblin from Keener gets him another card. Reinforcement of the Army is next. Picks up Bold Blader. Great card to have if your opponent is on the defensive. That way you can keep using its effect to automatically destroy the enemy monster without losing your Bold Blader.
This is actually a very interesting use of tech cards. The Djinn Releaser of Rituals is not generally used for its 1,200 attack and 2,000 defense. And Bull Blader is not usually used to attack face-down monsters to get them out of the way for the Djinn's attack.
Ooh, Fiendish Chain from Raymond Yu. It's going to lock down both the effect and the attacking capability of Bull Blader. Tellarknight Vega survives the attack from the Djinn, however, and Keener's going to take 400 damage. The temptation is, like, I bet Keener's like, come on, just Mirror Force me. Just Mirror Force me.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Come on, do it.
Yu's actually in a tough spot here, because as soon as he plays a card, the Vanity's Emptiness goes down. And now Keener's pretty much spent the entire game setting up. Even though he couldn't stick a special summon monster onto the field.
It could just be a case of... I think this one game might actually just go the distance.
It's possible.
Thing is, Yu doesn't know that Keener plays Forbidden Lance. I think he most likely doesn't know that he plays Forbidden Lance. So he might just walk straight into it the first time he gets a monster with decent attack points.
That is possible as well. You know.
Once the emptiness goes, it's going to be very difficult for Raymond Yu to stop Keener from doing everything he wants to all at once.
Yeah, everything's going to fall apart. And, you know, as we can see, Keener just keeps searching his deck. So, you know, while he can't special summon, he can still set up.
That's the one thing that makes me think that Raymond Yu might actually try to run Keener out of cards, is because Keener is the one that's been doing all the deck searching. He's the one whose deck is getting thin.
That's interesting. So he's now using Forbidden Lance on his own Bull Blader to make it unaffected by that Fiendish Chain.
Smart.
So he's looking to take down the Vega. So it's no longer a possibility for you to unwittingly run into that Forbidden Lance and lose his Vanity's Emptiness. Instead, the Bull Blader is taking it down. The Vanity's Emptiness just goes down immediately with that Vega. Then direct attacks from the Djinn and Sengju drop Yu's life points by an additional 2,600. So this is a very interesting game. It looks like Keener is definitely ahead, and he has not yet ritual summoned a single monster.
It's not often that you see Nekroz doing well without access to their ritual summoning.
Yeah,
but
seeing as how that's the focus of the deck.
If you have no monsters to play with, then that's what happens.
Yeah, and you know, Yu also locked himself into a fairly tight spot where he was unable to special summon, couldn't really get over Keener's monsters, didn't want to give up that special summon prevention, and that really allowed Keener to do what he has done here.
Nekroz Cycle is up next. Raymond checks his face downs. No, you don't have another Vanity's Emptiness there.
There's a Mind Crush in his hand.
Shurit is tributed to pay the entire tribute for the ritual summon of Nekroz of Trishula.
Wow, it hits the field, and its effect resolves.
It's Call of the Haunted and Oasis of Dragon Souls, essentially the same card in here, neither of which is useful with no monsters in your graveyard. And the Vega's taken out of the graveyard. So we got to keep Raigeki.
Yeah, so that was fortunate for him, but still a pretty devastating hit. And to cap it all off, Keener does still get to search his deck for a card to add to his hand with Shurit, Strategist of the Nekroz, and he's adding a Nekroz of Clauseless to his hand.
He's already used both Brionax. I think he used one of them multiple times with Nekroz of Unicorn. Checks his extra deck next. At the end of the turn, that Lance will wear off, and Bullblader will go back to being affected by Fiendish Chain. But before then, there are 2 level 4 monsters on the field, so he could Xyz summon.
Yeah, I would expect to see that. What are we going to see here? A Gust of
got a lot of choices. Emerald's not a bad one. He also has a giant hand.
Let's go for the Diamond Dire Wolf.
Wolf can clear itself out along with another card on the field.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty good play here because when you're ahead as Keener is right now, trading one of your own on-field cards for an opponent's on-field card is usually a good deal because he's sort of changes the equation. So you're up, even though you're both losing one card, it feels like you're up by more cards because you have so many more cards.
Yeah, the difference between, I have 6 cards and you have 3 is different than, I have 5 and you have 2.
Right.
Or I have 4 and you have 1. Even though the gap is the same, the actual impact is very different.
Exactly. And this was an especially good move for Keener because in addition to taking down that Stellar Nova Alpha, he's now less vulnerable to that Raigeki because he has already made use of one of the monsters that would have been destroyed by it. I don't know if he made that play because he's in fear of a card like Raigeki or Dark Hole clearing his field, but it certainly had that effect and worked out for him that way.
Yeah, I think he's just pressing through, getting rid of all of those cards while he has the chance. Nekroz Mirror's up next, banishing Shurit. And that pays for the entirety of Nekroz of Gungnir. So he essentially tributed 6 levels worth of monsters to summon 16 levels worth of monsters.
Sounds like a good deal.
And got in the search of a Clauselith out of it.
I don't know if the mathematician himself would be pleased with how that works out, because 6 does not equal 16.
I think he'd be pretty depressed about the whole thing because he just didn't get a spot into the Nekroz deck.
He might be a little bitter.
Pressing on with Nekroz of Gungnir's effect, Keener discards Nekroz of Valkyris to target the face-down Book of Moon, which is chained to put Gungnir face down. Unicorn discarded to bring back Valkyris. And now Keener will be safe from attacks this turn.
With that extra monster on the field, that Raigeki becomes more valuable.
Yes.
So that actually worked out well for you. Because, I mean, Keener's still in good shape. Well, that reinforcement of the army definitely makes it a lot better for you.
Raigeki wipes the field. Reinforcement of the army gets Tellarknight Deneb. And finally, Raymond Yu has a monster that he wants to play.
Finally, his deck has come together. He has a strategy online. So,
but he's out of traps now.
Yes, he has that Mind Crush, but he doesn't. He knows that Keener has the Valkyris.
He knows the Valkyris is there.
So that's actually a pretty good Mind Crush.
So now Keener has a bit of a conundrum. He's probably going to go ahead and do his ritual spell searching while he's got no monsters on the field.
Seems likely.
But now he has to decide whether he wants to wall up with Nekroz Cycle to bring back a Clausulus using that Djinn, or try to press forward and use his Valkyris offensively. Banishes one Cycle and Clausulus, gets Nekroz Mirror.
Okay, so now he has all 3 of the ritual spell cards in his hand.
Activates the Mirror.
Okay. As expected, he activated ritual spell card, and the Mind Crush was chained to get rid of Keener's only monster in his hand, which was the Valkyris.
Is that a possible ritual summon? Like, could he actually summon that Valkyris? I'm at a loss as to what materials he would have used that add up to 8.
I don't think so.
I think it's... Is it exactly 8?
Yeah, I can't think of anything that would have made it. Well, does he have a shirt in the grave?
I believe he banished the shirt for the Gungnir. Thunder King Ryo came down in the meantime before Raymond Yu. Nekroz Kaleidoscope up next. And he sends Herald of Arclight to drop a freshly summoned Nekroz of Unicorn. Pretty good draw.
Well, he can't use the effect of the Herald of the Arclight as a result of Thunder King Ryo.
He runs into the Mirror Force.
All right, so now we're back at a bit of a standstill, but that was an amazing draw.
Yeah, Nekroz Mirror, the levels need to be exact. Oh, no, two Unicorns. That's right, he already had 2 Unicorns.
So Yu drew Ring of Destruction on his previous turn, and then just set it in past to take down that Clausulus summoned by the Djinn.
And all of a sudden, things are turning Raymond Yu's way.
Yeah, that Raigeki turned the duel around, and a couple of really good top decks for Yu let him really come right back into this duel.
Yeah, the Mind Crush taking out the Clausulus, or taking out the Valkyris and the Ritual spell at the same time.
Yeah.
Extremely strong.
That was very good. The reinforcement of the army was very good when he had an otherwise weak hand. The Ring of Destruction to get him out of the Djinn lock was really good. Everything's coming up very well for you right now. And Keener, who drew Reinforcement of the Army while Thunder King Ryo was on the field, which he couldn't activate. And then on his last turn, Vanity's Emptiness, which would do nothing against the 2 monsters already on Yu's field, just decided to concede because there's no way out of this duel.
A pretty good start for David Keener, but he slowed down by Vanity's Emptiness enough for Raymond Yu to finally draw a monster.
Yeah, so that was very well played by Raymond Yu. He started off with a very weak hand. It was lacking in Deneb, which is already a fairly big disadvantage for a Tellarknight duelist to start from.
Only monster was Vega.
Yeah, a monster whose effect is irrelevant when you don't have another monster. And he managed to hang in there, stall his opponent out, and eventually turn the duel around with a sequence of draws that were perfect to win that first duel.
Now, in the meantime, Keener has all sorts of cards that he can use against. He has a wealth of options, and he'll need to make sure that he picks the right one for this matchup. Not only does he have Royal Decree and Mystical Space Typhoon, he also has the hands, all of which are fairly effective against Tellarknights.
Yeah, I would say I think all of them are coming in, but that looks like way too many cards. That's 9
the thing,
cards.
Is there are so many cards that are vital to how the Nekroz deck runs that you can't really throw in that many.
I mean, what can he safely take out here?
Upstart Goblin is always safe to take out.
3 Upstart Goblin, most likely gone. Book of Eclipse seems less than necessary
you don't
here.
really need
2 copies, it's 5
matchup.
cards. Forbidden Lance.
I'd probably keep Lance, because you know your opponent is running stuff like Ring of Destruction.
Okay.
Fiendish Chain, Mirror Force, Trench Hole, all that stuff.
That seems reasonable.
And Emptiness you're probably going to keep because it's Emptiness.
Alright, so...
From the monsters, though, I'm pretty sure all of those stay. And the question is, do you want to add more monsters to your deck by using the Ice Hands and Fire Hands?
Well, Nekroz of Gungnir maybe he'll take out.
Yeah, he could.
It loses some of its utility because it's not able to destroy a monster that attacks into Nekroz of Valkyris, which is one major use for Nekroz of Gungnir and Nekroz Mirror Match. And one reason a lot of duelists included in their deck, so he might take that out. So he does have a lot of cards he could take out. Whether he'll put all those in remains to be seen.
Whatever the choice is made, they were made very quickly, as we were already about to start our second duel.
Yes. Raymond Yu has 3 copies of Artifact Lancia in his side deck. You probably expect those to come in. And he also has some Maxis and Effect Mailers, which we might also see.
Pretty solid bet. Now, he certainly got monsters this time around. Starts off with Tellarknight Deneb. It looked like he also had Unal Kalai and Vega, which are now joined by Altair. So that's going to be a pretty strong second turn. And like we mentioned yesterday, he got that Deneb naturally. He didn't have to play Reinforcement of the Army of it for it and leave himself vulnerable to Trishula. And we see that Keener has sided in the hands. He's got 2 copies of Firehand, though. That's actually both copies that he side decks.
That is unfortunate, because that makes those Ice Hands unable to activate.
Correct. Well, unable to special something. They can still destroy destroy a spell or trap.
Right, so unable to use that part of their effect. Makes them less than optimal. Let's put it that way.
Raymond Yu already has the Raigeki ready to take out that Fire Hand without triggering its effect. But is he going to use it now or save it for if a Jin Releaser powered monster hits the field later on?
But he also had a Solemn Warning face down, right? But if he used it on the Ice Hand, Keener would be able to special summon. If you used it on the Fire Hand, Keener would be able to special summon Ice Hand. Is that correct?
On the summon, yes.
Yeah.
Now, if you use it on the effect of Fire Hand, then you can stop the chain.
Right.
Or stop the summoning chain, not the physical chain. Fire Hand destroyed by Raigeki. Thunder King Ryo comes up next. And gets in there for 1900. Keener has kept the Upstart Goblins in and summons his second Fire Hand.
Once again, Yu is in the same predicament. If he activates the... Oh, but here, yeah, he's going to do what you just mentioned. If he activated the Solemn Warning to destroy it immediately, its effect would activate, destroy Ryo, and he'd special summon Ice Hand from his deck.
Correct.
Instead, you wisely waited for Keener to attack his Ryo. It's sent to the graveyard, it activates its effect. Since the effect is one that special summons, Yu is able to activate Solemn Warning, pay 2,000 life points to negate its effect, and destroy the Fire Hand that way. Now, not only is the Ryo safe, but Keener also doesn't get to special summon Ice Hand from his deck.
That's rough for Keener as well, because he had Mystical Space Typhoon in his hand there.
But
he didn't activate it at that time. Upstart Goblin's up next. And he picks up Nekroz Cycle.
Let's see there's not much you can do with that hand.
Not super great. Looks like he's got both copies of Nekroz Cycle.
Yeah, no way to summon the Valkyris, which is his only ritual monster.
Not even that, because he's got a Unicorn.
Yeah, you're right, Unicorn.
That's one card.
It's also interesting because Thunder King Ryo's on the field, so you probably think, he's got a lot of search cards he can't activate. But he actually doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't have a whole lot of anything, really.
Typically, when you're holding 5 cards you can't play, it's because Thunder King Ryo is having an impact.
Raymond Yu is going to press his advantage as far as he possibly can. Goes with Vega into Unal Kalai, sending a Deneb to the graveyard.
Wisely so.
He's
not falling for Keener's bluff there.
Keener is at 5,800 right now with 5,900 damage represented here and no Nekroz cards in the graveyard to even use for a potential Valkyris. I can take that as 4,900 potential damage. It'll put him down to 900.
Keener takes the damage with no way to stop it.
In the end phase, Mystical Space Typhoon used on Mind Crush.
Keener needs a good draw here.
Last chance.
Ice Hand. That
Ice
is
Hand's
not going to help him.
He can still set the Jin, though, and try to wall up.
That he can. I can't imagine it would work, though.
It also cycle away the Ice Hand for Unicorn and at least get a big enough monster on the field to take down that Thunder King. And it would also have the benefit of negating monsters from the extra deck.
That seems pretty good, and it seems like it's his only option here.
Ice Hand, tributed to Nekroz Cycle to summon Unicorn.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good play because anything else he would do, he would just lose. At least here, it looks like he has a chance to survive another turn.
Very carefully considers what he's going to attack with Unicorn, and goes with the Unicolai. And I actually think that is a pretty good move, because leaving Thunder King out forces Raymond Yu to waste his battle phase, killing his own Thunder King if he wants to unlock his own Deneb searches.
I mean, he could just seize summon in main phase 1, which is probably...
He could.
Yeah, okay.
He could do that too.
Here's what we're seeing here.
But that also limits the number of possible monsters he could get, because he can't get a 2 level 4 warrior.
That is correct.
Now he does have Kane Gorgon. That's big enough.
Yeah, its effects are negated, though, temporarily.
And the attack is declared.
All right, so that's the end of the Nekroz of Unicorn. In his second main phase, he's going to summon Altair. Special summon Deneb.
Another Altair.
Activate Deneb's effect. Just add Altair to his hand. He could have won if he summoned in main phase 1, but I guess this time he was a little concerned.
He wouldn't be able to attack with the Kane Gorgon if he did that, because you can't attack with anything but Tellarknights.
That's if you activate the Altair's effect, right?
Which he did.
Oh, no, I'm saying he could have summoned it and not activated its effect.
Well, it doesn't matter anyways, because 2 level 4s is
Gaga Cowboy. So,
and that got Keener down to 750 with the attack.
So yes, he saw that he was able to, if that attack was successful, would be able to get his opponent below that 800 mark. So he opted to make that play, understanding that if he's successful with the attack, which would be the only way he would want to summon that second monster and make the attack, he could still go for that route, summon the Altair, make the Cowboy, and win the duel. So that is our round 10 feature match.
Looks like David Keener will probably not be going back to the World Championship this year, but Raymond Yu is still in it, now with a record of 8-2 with his Tellarknight deck. Next up, we've got an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! For you, and following that, we'll be into round 11
Yes.
of 12. Don't go away.